So our next segment is the high five, where we dive deep or kind of deep into five questions. And the first question is, with this recent public outburst from Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher, whose side are you on with the NAL deals and just the whole situation?
Uh,
Uh, I'll
Oh,
start. I'll
okay.
start. I'll start. Yeah.
Sorry.
Normally when you do something like this, you either have a set plan or you're host of the segment, intro someone. But we're new here.
All right,
Um,
Austin, let's hear your thoughts.
and thanks, bro. I really appreciate that. I am on the side of Jimbo Fisher in this debate. I think that Nick Saban is number one. I don't think Nick Saban should have made a comment because Nick Saban doesn't really have to answer to anyone at this point. He is the Bill Belichick, the Jack Nicholas, the Vince Lombardi, whatever you want to call it, of college football coaches. Unless you're scared, which I don't think he is, why are you worried about this? And then for that matter, you're coming off a year where you didn't win the national championship, you didn't win that SEC championship.
They
You
didn't
got
beat Texas A&M.
didn't even
didn't beat
beat Texas
Texas
A&M.
A&M.
Yeah,
Dog, you got bigger fish to fry. And when it comes to stuff like this, Saban doesn't know the inner workings of Jimbo's recruiting system or how it went, and so I get why he'd say it, but that's something that you use internally to fuel your fire, and not yell out at Jimbo Fisher, who for a fact is taking zero crap from Nick Saban, especially when he beat him last year, and it's just a firecracker waiting to go off. So I'm on Jimbo's side in this. If you don't know the inner workings of my program, don't talk about it. Keep it to yourself. So that's my take. Ryan, what you got?
Which Ryan?
I'm also on Jimbo's side.
Arnon.
I mean, I think you said most of what I wanted to say. I mean, I'm generally in favor of the NIL system. I am in favor of these athletes getting compensation for what they do. They put in a lot of hard work. Obviously, the NIL system isn't a perfect system, but anything that the NCAA puts out is not going to be a perfect system.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think teams like Texas A&M that have big money boosters and cash to throw around are going to benefit from this. Um, but it's Nick Saban. You're the coach of Alabama. Like, it's not like you don't have resources. Also, it's not like he's calling out not only Jimbo Fisher, but he's calling out Deion Sanders at you know Jackson State. Like, why are you just the coach of Alabama complaining about Jackson State's program? And like
Mm-hmm.
Deion Sanders said, and like you said, Austin, don't get up there and call a man out in a press conference because you don't like something he may or may not be doing that he's probably not doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was out of character for Nick Saban to publicly complain about something like that, uh, and it was definitely the wrong move to uh, make that public. And my favorite thing to come out of this was Jimbo Fisher's response to Nick Saban, where he made it clear that there is no love lost between the two, and that he does not have a lot of respect or care to be associated with Nick Saban. So I'm excited to see this game next year and see how this plays out on the field.
It's gonna be a good
Yeah, I
one.
think y'all pretty much covered most of it. Um, and I think just another small thing to bring up is, even if Nick Saban or Alabama themselves isn't directly involved in like, well, like Bryce Young has $1 million in
Mm-hmm.
NIL deals. Like, all these Alabama players are getting deals. Like, it's not,
Yeah,
it's so secret. Like, maybe Nick Saban doesn't have his hands on it, like he's accusing Jimbo Fisher of, but like, it's still happening. Like, it's still happening at his program.
right. It's not like
So I
he's the
just
coach
don't
of
understand
Tulane.
it.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think one thing that got completely overlooked in this whole Jimbo and Nick Saban debate is, I don't know if y'all saw it, but I think it was either Cardell Jones or JT Barrett started this foundation at Ohio State where basically it's sort of a cover but more legally sound for boosters to donate money to the foundation that then the foundation provides things for players. but because you're giving to a foundation, it's considered a charity, and so it's a tax write-off. And so, like, the players go do like an autograph signing, like an appearance for the foundation that is being funded by boosters that are then getting a tax write-off for it. And if there's anything in this sport that if I was Nick Saban, I'd be more upset about, like, that is crazy that we have a system where we can do that, where like people get a tax write off for giving money to players who go to their school when like 3 years ago that would have gotten you suspended for 5 years from playoffs or bowl games.
I would just like to make one point. I agree with what you're saying. I do think that part of it is wrong, and I think Nick Saban should obviously be more concerned about that. But I would also like to note that this is Austin Street Matter, Indiana Hoosier fan, and noted Ohio State hater. So
I'm just saying, man.
I
Like,
know I'm just messing with you,
no,
but
I know you are, but like
I think we're
it,
all Ohio State haters.
I
it's
agree.
true.
Let's lay that on the table. Okay.
Like,
That's true. That's
like
true.
Ohio State is not some no-name school. Like they've competed in the playoff. I think they're like the fourth most, fifth most. Like they won it the first year. They're not some no-name school, and they're doing this. I think in my mind, Ohio State is a bigger threat to the Nick Saban crown of dominance than Texas A&M is, and it's not even close.
The only thing is Ohio State is not competing for a lot of the same players that A&M
That's
and Alabama
that's
are.
true. I'll give you that.
That's where his anger comes from
Oh,
because A&M is stealing players that are usually going to Alabama.
that's
But at
fair.
the end of the day, Saban's got to adapt, and
Yeah,
like you said, he's on the Mount Rushmore of coaches, so he should be able to adapt and
yeah,
not, you know, complain at press conferences.
yeah. I agree.
All right, let's move on to our next question. What or who has been the biggest surprise of the MLB season so far? I can start this one off.
Go ahead.
Um, I think I'm gonna have to go with the Mets. Um, I don't like the Mets, but they have like I knew they'd be good, but they're like actually kind of like good, you know? And it's
They're
really
not meant to
scary.
be.
Like it's I mean, they don't I mean they had Scherzer for um up until like last week. And like players like Tyler McGill have like really stepped up in the pitching staff. Their offense has been like pretty good, like well
Alonso,
above what it has been. And
yeah,
yeah, like Alonso's been
Alonso's
amazing.
playing well. Marte is playing
Yeah,
well enough.
yeah.
Or
And this this is the Mets, so like there's part of me in the back of my head where I'm just thinking like, I mean, they're gonna fall back to earth. They have like a brutal June. Like they go out west and play like the Padres, Dodgers. Then they like play the Astros in two series, and just
They just had to
we'll
run
see.
the Jock Peterson gauntlet.
Yes, that is true.
Didn't go so well for them.
But yeah, I mean they've been my biggest surprise so far. Just like how good they've just felt, like just the eye test,
Yeah.
and the numbers back it up too. All right, Austin, you want to go next?
sure. So my biggest surprise is Anthony Rizzo, and as a family who half of my dad's side of the family is big Cubs fans, when the Cubs decided to sell everyone, it was a sad day. Um, but it's sort of been great to see Anthony Rizzo have this not resurgence, but more of delaying of the fall off, one might say, as a lot of Yankees fans were sort of impartial to the signing and thought, why are we doing this? We could be developing a young talent, or why are we signing Rizzo? And it sort of felt like both teams were just doing it to do it, and that no one really wanted the other person. And then Rizzo decided that he wanted to play great baseball, and so his OPS plus so far this year is around 147, which is up from 110 last year. He's got, at the time of this recording, I'm pretty sure it's still 10 home runs through like 43 games compared to his 8 last year through his 49 with the Yankees. He's on pace to surpass his home run number by like the middle of the season, he's playing as well, if not better, than he has been over the past 3 years. And I don't think any Yankees fans expected that when they signed him and then saw what he had last year. And if you're a Big Show fan, he was like the April Player of the Month. Had a couple of great home run games. So it's great to see him playing well. I wish it wasn't for the Yankees because I don't really want the Yankees to do well, but it sort of is really cool to see Rizzo still balling when people thought he wouldn't be. So that's my biggest surprise. I think it's Anthony Rizzo.
I like that. I like that. My biggest surprise is that unlike Anthony Rizzo, not everyone is doing so well on the offensive side of the ball in the MLB. I got a few numbers that may be a few days outdated, uh, but the average hitter in the MLB this year is hitting 236, slugging 380 with a 687 OPS, and those are all down from last year by uh, about 40 points. And the average MLB team is hitting zero point 0.9 homers a game this season, which is down from 1.22 last season and 1.39 last season. And so, if you know what's happening, it's not a surprise that offense is down because clearly the baseball that is in play is not the same baseball that has been in play in recent seasons. Uh,
Mhm.
But what's is a surprise to me is that the MLB can get away with this sort of blatant tampering with the game from season to season, and that it's kind of a open secret that everyone knows and sort of talks about, but no one really talks about it. Like you'll go on Twitter or something, and you'll see people talk about, oh, the new baseball, or oh, we want the old baseball back, but there's no big story about the fact that the MLB is just kind of messing with the game from year to year, that it's impacting stats and which impacts players' contracts, impacts how teams do, impacts how organizations build their teams. And I just think if this happened in any other sport, it would be like the NFL or the NBA. It would be a huge story, but
Mhm.
it sort of is happening and no one really cares. That's my biggest surprise so far this season.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I think when you look at it, like anytime you tamper with the game, it's a big deal, and people were going nuts about James Harden doing the like all his free throws 2 years ago. Like, he was breaking the game. You have the leg kick debacle in the NBA, and then like if you want to get even specific to balls, like you look at Tom Brady and Deflategate, that great event in the NFL's history where they were just flipping their lids on that. At the fact that the MLB, I'm not a huge MLB guy, but the fact that they can do this and it's sort of obvious to everyone baffles me.
Yeah.
yeah. I think this is also a great lead into the next question, which is should robo umps be implemented in the MLB? Um, let's go Ryan this time. You go first.
Okay, I'll go first. I'll be quick. I think no. Uh, Clearly, that the umps in the MLB this year have been widely, and not everyone, and not all the time, but overwhelmingly atrocious. Like very bad. Uh, and it's been not only missing balls and strikes, but kind of some questionable ejections, some kind of power plays. It's been bizarre. The umps haven't always been the most accurate, but this season has been really, really bad. But I don't think that robo umps are the kind of neat and clean fix that everyone's or some people seem to think that they are. I think even when you have, the strike zone is somewhat subjective as it is, and I think just because you throw, a robot, kind of digital strike zone or whatever in there, it's not gonna get rid of all debate. It's not gonna get rid of all controversy. And then also just on the human side of it, you're putting a lot of people out of a job by switching to robo umps, and some people may think that they might not be the best at their jobs, but it's still their jobs. And I think that robo umps will honestly create more controversy than they would solve. And so I think that there's better fixes to the problem than just going robo umps. And maybe I don't have those solutions, and maybe it just involves the umps just being better. But I think that that's a better. I don't think robo umps should be implemented at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also said no to this question, and I was an adamant no for like too many reasons. In addition to the fact that you're putting like 30, 40 people out of jobs, um, like I think when you look at baseball, like the human aspect of it is something that's always gonna happen, and like anytime you have a robot, the pitcher will just trick the robot to learn how to do it, and 2.5 years from now, we'll be thinking, why did we ever switch? Um, and like, if you want a fun follow on Twitter at Umpire Scorecards, I believe we follow them, but they're great. Just like looking at like what effect did an umpire actually have on a game, and for the most part, it's actually not too terribly bad. But as with a lot of things in the sports world, you really get the highlights and the lowlights on the news, and so you see all the bad stuff. And I'm not saying it's excusable. I'm just saying that there are some umps out there who are pretty good at their job. And then, like my final point against it, Ryan, you got something?
Yeah, sorry. Just like with the umpire scorecards, I saw one this morning. That was, I believe it was the Guardians versus the Tigers. The guy missed one strike the whole
That's,
game.
that's what I'm looking at. It's like the first thing, Doug Eddings. So congratulations, Doug. You're doing a great job.
Like it can be done. Like we've
Yeah.
seen, like following this account, like you've seen it.
hmm
Um, but
Yeah, it says he called 142 of 143 taking pitches correctly.
Yeah, I think you make
Zero.
a point,
Go.
Austin. I was just saying, I think you make a good point that when an ump makes a terrible missed call, you're going to see it all over social media, but you're not going to see it when an ump calls a good game or when an ump makes every call. Like,
Yeah.
so I think that the issue is maybe a little inflated.
Yeah, we all know who Angel Hernandez is. If you like, are like, I don't watch baseball. I know who that guy is. I have no idea who Doug Eddings is, but apparently, based on this scorecard, he's great at his job.
Yeah,
But I, and I mean that's a larger topic for a later day about the issue with sports reporting that we have. But you look at that, and then you look at like the great issue of the shift, of banning the shift, and you have all these baseball traditionalists. I think one of my really good friends who is sort of 50-50 on the shift, like, if there are people who are upset that you're moving players on the field, do you really think no one will be upset that we now have robots calling strikes? Like, come on.
yeah.
Just think about it for a second. It would be
I don't know.
very, but
I feel like I don't know what it is, but I just feel like there's got to be some kind of middle ground. I mean, I think it'd probably take too long, but maybe some kind of like review system of balls and strikes or something. But like, um, I mean, the review system now isn't very good either.
I feel like that's
So
that's balls and strikes review system is a slippery slope there.
yeah, I don't know.
Already some
I
Texas
just it's
fans have been
definitely an issue. Um, but yeah, let's go to the next question. Let's go a little NBA action here. Who has been the best player of the NBA playoffs so far?
I ain't it. Uh, it's Curry for me, Steph Curry. I think when you look at the Warriors and what they've done, playing some really tough teams, the Grizzlies, and just recently the Mavericks, he's been like an emotional leader, a leader on the field, court. And I think that's one characteristic that doesn't show up necessarily on the stat sheet. It's just how big of an impact he has when he's on the floor. He's averaging like 25, 5, and 5 from the point guard spot. And I think that he's not he's not trying to do too much. He's not overdoing his role. He's simply facilitating, playmaking, putting the ball in the bucket. And at the end of the day, just getting the job done. And I think that like they're in the finals now for a reason. It's because of him. So Curry's been my best player in the NBA playoffs.
I'm gonna go with the player that Curry just beat in four and five. I would go Luka Doncic. Um, as much as it pains me to praise Luka Doncic, he's been the best player this playoffs. Um, just like I think he's averaging like 32, 33 a game. Um, and just like carrying this Mavs team that is just not very good. Like they don't really have like the second best player is Brunson, and he's maybe a guy you want like third, fourth. Like if you just look at the Warriors, like I feel like you could make the argument that Andrew Wiggins is comparable to Brunson, and he's their fourth guy on offense. Like
Yeah.
it's just like they need to surround him with just more. I don't know what they're waiting on because like he's clearly a once in a generation type of talent, and yeah.
You got something to say, Austin?
Yeah, I think the Mavericks are in such a weird spot where Luka comes in and they start winning games right away. And normally, when you have one of those like top three picks, you bring your guy in, you stink for another year, and you get another good prospect. And Luka came in, and then they were like the eighth seed in the playoffs. And like, I love that, but like, well, what are you supposed to do in that situation? Trade for somebody, sign somebody? I just
Bring
Well,
some
like
they
more
got
depth.
like Kristaps, and obviously that didn't work out. Like they just
Kristaps.
need to be smarter about it.
Do you know where Kristaps is playing right now?
Yes, I do, Washington,
Okay, cool. I didn't know where he's playing because he's not relevant anymore.
because it was the Spencer Dinwiddie trade.
Oh, that's true. And yeah, Dinwiddie turned out really well for the Mavericks.
I mean, he's
So,
like fine. It's just like he's just not what they need.
Yeah. They need
I just
uh,
more.
feel like they should be taking more care of this. Like it feels like they're just wasting it.
I mean, they got plenty of, well, hopefully they have plenty of time with Luca. So, and hopefully they'll build around him a little better. I think the Mavs are an ambitious enough organization that it's safe to
Yeah,
assume.
like I don't doubt that they'll do something. I just think they need to do something.
Yeah, yeah.
it's Mark Cuban for God's sake.
Yeah.
He'll just go out there and he'll just like he'll buy the Nets and then trade Durant and Kyrie and all them over. He'll just buy the whole NBA. It'll be great.
All
Uh,
right. Here's our last question. Go
Uh,
to the.
uh, I'll give my player first.
Oh, that is true. That is true.
that's fun,
Ryan,
Ryan.
give us your player.
Um, I'll be I'll be quick. My
No
answer
worries.
was a little bit better when I came up with it a few days ago. The answer is Jimmy Butler for me, and I'm still sticking with that. Tempted to go Jason Tatum, but he's been a little bit up and down. And pre-injury, Jimmy Butler was just lights out. He was averaging like 28 points a game. He was shooting well. He decided all of a sudden that he can shoot threes, at least at a decent rate, which he could not in the regular season. And he, before his injury, before the last two games, he was at like a plus 136 plus minus. Now, the last two games have not been as good. Celtics have won both of those. But I think that even if you take into account those two games, Jimmy Butler has uh, pulled the Heat to where they were. And yes, they've had good performances from some other players. Bam had some good games. He's had some bad games. Uh, Tyler Hero and like Struess and Vincent have had good games and bad games, but Jimmy Butler has been like, besides the last two games when he's been injured, has been a consistent presence for the Heat, and they would not be where they were without him. He continuously shows up in the playoffs and shows that he is a big time player. He's someone who steps up and just does he doesn't always show up in the box score, the things that he does to help teams win. But this playoffs, he's been doing those things that don't show up in the box score and also showing up in the box score. And they may be down right now to the Celtics, but I think he may have something else to say tonight. We'll see. But I'm no fan of the Heat. I don't like the Heat, but I have to give Jimmy Butler his props. I think there's some people who like to say, "Oh, he's really good. He's not elite though," but he has shown this playoffs, and he's shown it before, honestly. But at this point, you have to give him credit. He is an elite player who can really help a team win games.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like the Heat, they have a lot of depth, but they didn't have a guy. Like everyone needs a guy.
And
Um,
you're looking at Twitter during the last game. I don't know if you saw Joel Embiid tweeted the Heat need another star, and that to me is just peak NBA, peak drama. And so I mean, Joel Embiid to the Heat, I want to see it. Like,
Oh man, it's
bring it on.
almost like Joel Embiid and Jimmy Butler could have played together long term somewhere else in the NBA.
I mean, that would have been interesting
That
to
would have
see.
been really great.
That's
Huh?
who knows? Who
I
knows how
guess
that
we'll
could
never
have gone?
know.
yeah. All
uh,
right. Well, let's go to our next question. Um, NFL. Which NFL team had the best draft? I can start us off on this one. I'm gonna go with the Jets. Uh, I just really like what they did, especially with their first four picks. They got Sauce Gardner at 4, one of my favorite players and nicknames.
Hmm.
Um, and then I also really like. I mean, running backs are kind of a dying breed in the NFL, but I really like Brees Hall. I think he can really be a difference maker for them, especially with Zach Wilson and just kind of the big question mark that he is right now. And then they also grabbed Garrett Wilson. I know Austin is a huge Garrett Wilson guy. Um, and they also got Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State, who I believe they got him at 26, and he was mocked to go in the top 10, like up until draft night. So, um, 4 guys with incredible value, who I think will be immediate impact players for the Jets, which is a team that obviously really needs impact players. So,
you
I'll
go.
go ahead. I'll say I have a few teams I wanted to highlight. The Jets were one of them. Everything you said, I really liked. Brees Hall pick I thought was great. Though, as someone with high stock in Michael Carter Jr. for some dynasty leagues, that kind of hurts a little bit. But I thought the Jets had a great draft. I thought the Falcons had a really good draft, which is kind of shocking to say as a Falcons fan. But I love the Drake London pick. I love getting Ebiketie in the second round. I thought they did well after that. Great day 2 picks. I think the Chiefs had a great draft. I think that Karloftis was a good pick. Sky Moore is a really interesting pick to replace Tyreek Hill. I'm excited to see what he can do with Patrick Mahomes. I think the Eagles had a really great draft. They were almost the team I went with because to get N'Kobe Dean and Jordan Davis and to trade for AJ Brown, they got a lot of big time impact players. And you'll hear a little bit more from me about the Eagles later on. But the team I think had the best draft, I'm going to go with the Ravens. I really like what they did. I thought Ajabo in the second round was a great pick. They got a lot of value. They had, I think, like 4th round picks, and they got great value with them. Got some good offensive linemen. The Ravens always do a great job of just taking the best player on the board, which I think is, you know, the best draft strategy. If you have glaring holes, go for it. But if the best player's there, take them because that's what you need in the NFL. Is you need the best players, and you build around those players. Don't pick players based on your roster. Make your roster based on the players you get. And I think that the best case of that was them taking Kyle Hamilton at 14, who was, for me, the best player of the draft and a future Hall of Famer and just an incredible prospect. And for them to jump on him when he fell to them, was maybe easy, some would say, but 13 teams decided not to do it. And so props to the Ravens for doing that. And for that reason, they're my number one team in the draft.
Yeah. 12 teams actually, because the Giants had 2 picks in the
Okay.
top
My bad.
10.
My bad.
But I just, if we're going to get real, we're
Jets
gonna
did as well. So
just so
Okay.
do I.
A number of teams passed on Kyle Hamilton.
So the Giants are actually my team that won the draft. I think when you look at the draft, they came out of it the best with Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau, 2 guys who were mocked to go in the top, like honestly 1-2 in like late December. Um, they got him at 7-9. Didn't have to move for them. When you look at it last year, they traded down from 11 to 20 and got Tony. Um, so that makes the Wandale Robinson pick in the 3rd round a little weird because like Wandale and Tony are almost the same player, and so it's really interesting that on a team that doesn't really need wide receiver with Galladay and Shepard and Slayton and Tony there, that they would address that position again, especially in the 3rd round. But Wando's an electric player; he can make plays. So him on the back end of Neal and Thibodeau, and then when you look at it, my one of my favorite steals of the draft is mainly because I'm an Indiana Hoosier, but he also tested really well at the combine. Was middle linebacker Mikey McFadden. If you watched any of the Indiana Cincinnati game when they played earlier in the year, Cincinnati was on their heels for pretty much the entire first quarter, and then McFadden got ejected for what I think was a bogus targeting call. And the game completely flipped, and you could see the effect that McFadden had on the field. And I think that pick will look back on and go, "Oh man, how did this guy fall here?" So for me, without a doubt, like I don't have a doubt in my mind. Other teams had great drafts. Jets had a great draft. Baltimore had a great draft. Atlanta had a great draft. I think the Jaguars had a terrible draft, personally. But I think the Giants definitely won the draft, and I had one of the top, if not the best, draft classes to fill their needs and everything in this one. So
That was a
no
great
one.
breakdown, but I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know who was watching the Cincinnati Indiana game.
Well, okay,
Certainly not me.
at the time, Cincinnati was supposed to be good, and Indiana was also supposed to be good, and then it turned out that only one of those predictions was right, and I'll let you do your own research on which it was because we don't talk about last season. But right there, the McFadden's an impact player. He'll make an impact from day one. I'm excited to see him in the league. So I think the Giants win the draft without a doubt.
Before we move
awesome. Well,
on here,
that.
I just
Oh,
want to say
oh.
one thing. Breaking news in the sports world: the Lakers have hired Darvin Ham to be their head coach. And if you were paying attention, Darvin Ham,
Big time Hawks guy.
assistant. If you're paying attention, do you know who was really pushing for the Lakers to hire Darvin Ham?
If you say LeBron James,
It
I'm
was
kicking.
LeBron James. So it has begun. Someone was listening to this podcast live,
Dude,
apparently. I
why
don't know, tapped into our computers, and they made the call.
at this point? Why are they even hiring a head coach? Just let LeBron do it. Just let him do it.
Exactly.
Your words.
I'm more than my words. Like he's gonna complain about it halfway through the season. So whatever.